Okay, so the next topic is on war. Now, it's quite a big topic, all right? Need to know quite a bit of information about certain different aspects. And the first one of those is knowing the different types of war. Now, this isn't a hugely common question to come up, but it's important that you do know them. So the first type, okay, of war is a conventional war. Now, this is a war between typically two countries, actioned by the prime ministers or the president, the leader of that country, and usually fought with two big armies, all right? Another one is a civil war, and that's a war within a country, okay? And one of the most famous examples of that being the American Civil War. Then there's guerrilla warfare, all right? So this is another form of war which takes place within one country. The guerrillas form an unofficial army who use hit-and-run tactics against the government, all right? A lot of sort of, whether it be like nail bombs or small sort of petrol bombs or whatever that cause issues within a country. It could be hand-to-hand combat as well that come into that, all right? The other one is terrorism, all right? And I don't think I need to go into too much detail of that. The other one is chemical and biological warfare. All right, so this is the type of war that seeks to gain victory by maiming or killing the enemy through the use of chemical or biological weapons. And the final one for you to be aware of is a holy war. So that would be a war fought on behalf of God or supported by God, with the most famous example being the Crusades. Now, as I said, I don't think it's hugely likely that question comes up, but it's important that you're able to talk about those different types in case it does. A question more likely to come up is describe the conditions of a just war. Okay, now if this does come up, that there are 7. Now I know typically we only have to focus on 4 when it comes to the describe, but here guys, you need to show your full overview. So if that means you've got to combine some in sentences, or whether you do sort of 3 in detail and then you list all the rest of them at the end, then that's how you're going to go about it. So the first one, all right, is that you must have a just cause, all right? So there must be a good reason to go to war. So for example, if a country is under threat of invasion from an unjust aggressor, okay, so that would be one. Now linked to that, all right, is the idea of right intention, okay? It must be started for the correct reason, and the outcome must be to establish peace. Okay, that's supposed the difference between just cause and right intention. The next one is a legitimate authority. So it has to be done by the leader of the country, okay? Or the lead, if it was a holy war, and it was action by Catholics, then it would have to be the Pope, okay? The next one is that it must be a last resort. So they must have gone through all other diplomatic routes of trying to avoid war, so whether that be through negotiations, through cutting off trade links, those types of ideas before going to war. The next one is proportional, okay? So the way I sort of phrase this is that the juice has got to be worth the squeeze, okay? So the possible benefits, all right, of the war, they must outweigh the destruction and the force that is used, okay? And then I suppose the loss of life. The next one is likelihood of success. So a war must be started knowing that there is a good chance of victory. And the other one is immunity of non-combatants, okay, or of civilians. So essentially, those who are innocent, all right, and not involved with the war, that their lives must be protected. Now, you could be asked to explain why a war can be just. And if this is the case, right, then obviously you're not going to mention all 7 of those things. But I would say that it's a good idea to combine 2, all right? So in the revision guide that we've created, it is the way that we've sort of done it is that on there we've got that a war can be just if it's done by a proper authority and for a just reason, okay? You then got to go on and say, this is because, sort of say how that's possible, and then talk about the type of impact. So therefore, if a war was started in the UK by the Prime Minister, all right, and that it was to establish peace and to protect the country, something like that, then this is the type of war that a Catholic could support, and it would be considered to be just. The other one that we've got is proportional and immunity of civilians. Okay, once again, you go on and you explain why that is. Okay, and then when it comes to the impact, you can just say, therefore, many people would believe that there would be a just war if these conditions were met. Okay, quite straightforward. Just make sure that you combine 2 of the 7 conditions for each paragraph. So we're totally making reference to 4. Okay, now this could come up as an evaluation, all right, and it could be a sort of statement like, a war can never be just. Do you agree? Give reasons why somebody would disagree. Now, if it was that the war can be just, that for me, right, there are some conditions that are the easiest to sort of to pick apart. Okay, so I think that if we talk about the immunity of civilians, okay, now if that's the case, the war in today's society is often there's lots of airstrikes, okay, and being able to carry those out without causing loss of life to civilians is very difficult, because whilst we can be accurate, we can never be as accurate to avoid the loss of life, or to be sure of it. So therefore it's difficult to say whether that condition can ever be met. The other one would be the last resort. When is enough enough? Okay, so this could be that they've gone and they've negotiated, that they've restricted trade with that country, but is there still another option? So what I mean by that is that the main negotiator, that there might be a clash of personalities, possibly, okay, between the 2 negotiators from different countries. Would it be better if somebody else became the negotiator? Would it be better to include other countries or the United Nations? That sort of idea. So when is a last resort? Can that ever be established? So those would sort of be 2 I focus on. I think another one, you could talk about the likelihood of success, about the fact that it is very difficult to establish. So, for example, in some countries like Russia, China, North Korea, that are quite sealed off countries, that do we ever know enough of the information to establish whether the war will be successful? Now, your argument in the exam can be no. Okay, so those would be the 3 that I would really focus on for the alternative, why a war can never be just. All right. Now, you could also then obviously be asked to look at Catholic views on war. Okay, and if that's the case, then you've got to know why some support it and why some don't. All right. Now, this does link with a lot of the sort of the ideas from the previous topic of violence. All right. So the most straightforward ones, I would say, are that why Catholics do not support war would be that it goes against the teachings of Jesus. Blessed be the peacemakers. Okay, so they would support ensuring that peace is established, not peace is established, I apologise, that war is avoided and that peace is maintained. So they go through diplomatic ways of trying to solve a problem, like negotiation, cutting off trade links, as I said before, and rather than supporting war. The other one is that it goes against the example set by Jesus. And once again, you can talk about how he said to Peter when he was arrested, to put away his sword, for those who for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. So his actual actions of him telling him to stop. Okay, so you can talk about that. You can also talk about Jesus in the temple, all right, where he overthrew the market traders, that whilst he stood up for other people, he did it in a non-violent way. Okay, so those are the 2 biggest reasons that I would say. The impact for that final one, you could say that some Catholics are pacifists. Okay, so to sort of just to summarize there, that it goes against Jesus' teachings and his example. All right, blessed be the peacemakers, and for all who draw the sword will die by the sword, being the 2 sort of teachings that I would draw upon. And the impact of this is that they would not support war, support diplomatic ways of trying to establish a solution to a problem, and that some Catholics could then be pacifists. However, as I said, this could come up as a valuation question because some Catholics support the idea of war, all right? And the reason for this would be, number one, because you can use that example of Jesus in the temple again, okay? And you can use it this time to justify violence. So some people would argue that whilst Jesus didn't inflict injury upon anyone, him throwing over tables, that it could possibly have happened, and his actions were quite aggressive and violent. So for that reason, they would say that, look, there are some certain circumstances that do require violence. So therefore, these Catholics, now make sure you remember this, would never want it to be the first sort of response that we will go to war. They would want other things to go in place first, but that there may be a time for war if it was standing up, like Jesus was, standing up against social injustice. For the second paragraph, right, that Catholics believe that a war can be okay, all right, and can serve a purpose if it's actioned by the correct authority, all right. So one of the reasons for this is Jesus taught, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, meaning that if anything was called instructed by the government, okay, which could be about taxes, paying taxes, or it could be about a command given by a government to go to war, all right, then that's okay in God's eyes. So therefore, if the government or the Prime Minister, the leader of the government, said that we are going to war, then that is okay, because Jesus justified the actions of a government when he said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. All right. So therefore, the impact of this would be that some Catholics would say that, okay, a war does serve a purpose, particularly a just war, because that's one of the conditions of a just war. All right. And it would also give them the confidence that if they were having to serve in an army, all right, or if they wanted to support a war, that they wouldn't be going against God's teachings.